Welcome to another episode of Dees Talk. My guest today is Nigel O'Sullivan. He's a financer, been working in the finance industry for his whole life, and I believe he will have some very interesting points to make and some conversation to share. Welcome, Nigel.
Darius, thank you very much for inviting me to share some anecdotes, and I apologize in advance if I upset anyone.
Oh, no. Well, I'd like to explore everything, no subject off the table for me. So you feel free to navigate whichever direction you'd like to go. So I'd like to start off from the beginning, really. You were born in London to an Irish Catholic doctor and a Protestant mother who later converted to Catholicism. Tongue-tied on that. And yeah, would you? And so they were in the medical profession, and then you ended up going into finance. How did all that happen?
Well, in 1956 is when they met at Guy's, and my father was a bit of a womanizer, and my mother was very faithful, but they were both hard workers. At that time, when they were engaged for 6 years, they got married in 1962. Actually, they had death threats on them because a Catholic and a Protestant were, poles apart. Right. So they got through that. They had to have protection for a while, but then my mother converted to Catholicism and is probably more devout Catholic, and they've celebrated their 62nd wedding anniversary, actually, just in September this year.
Wow, it's hard to imagine that two people from Christian faith could have faced such.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah. You wouldn't believe it.
So they made it through. And then how did you get so interested in finance or get into that world?
Well, when you live in a doctor's family and a house and you're young and the phone rings all the time, right, that it's always people with problems, never people that, preventative medicine wasn't really around then. So it was typically, I wasn't allowed to do three things, which was I was never allowed a bicycle because we had a driveway. My father was afraid that a car would come and smash us. Secondly, I was never allowed to ride a motorbike because he played God when he was in Ipswich, whereby he was on call, and basically there were 6 young people going up the motorway, and 2 juggernauts, and 6 of these people came in, and he had to say, "She's dead. He's not going to make it. We work on those 4, and those 4 survived." Wow. He said that was like playing with God. So you're never going to ride a motorbike. So those are the only 3 restrictions.
So it was no bike, no motorbike, and
no motorbike, no motorcycle, and what was the third one? Everyone that went skiing was for him to arrange an air ambulance to get them out, etc. So I was never allowed to ski, even though people had school holidays and things like that.
It makes sense. A lot of people do have a lot of very serious accidents from skiing. I mean, I always think of Michael Schumacher, who spent his whole life driving Formula One. It was okay, and then he had a ski accident and seriously damaged himself. So makes sense. Are your parents still around today?
They are, fortunately, but growing old is something I'm doing some research on because it's actually quite expensive. My father is 94. He's got dementia. He's got Alzheimer's. He's got cancer of the blood. He's got everything. My mother's got a broken femur. She's just had a stair lift put upstairs. She hadn't been downstairs for 3 years, right? Wow. And today, you can't find new bungalows or anything like that. And I've given them my word that they will never go to a nursing home, that they will always live with me.
And they live with each other, and they're still together.
Yes, that's correct.
Good.
Yeah.
At least they have each other. Well, I'm sorry to hear you're going through all that. But that's good that they managed to stay together all these years.
Absolutely, through thick and thin.
Despite what your father was doing, it seems they don't make women as forgiving as that these days, I don't think.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so you were living in Hampstead, or when you were with them growing up, or you moved to Hampstead rather?
Yeah, I basically lived in Hendon, which is where my parents built their house. And then I worked at London Bridge, and I lived in Tower Bridge. And then I couldn't, I was in a flat, lovely flat, overlooking the water, right? Very, very nice. But then I decided that I was going to move out to Hampstead, which was 1.25 miles away from my parents as they got elderly. We get phone calls at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, right, whereby they've got accidents, and I dread the phone going,
right.
That there's going to be something bad, even though we've got carers and cameras, etc., all over the house. So that was the reason for moving to Hampstead, and that was in 2007, so they're still going strong. So many years later, yeah.
Well, thank God for that they're still okay, and it does make sense. I do find it's interesting as you get older, you reach a point where you both have maximum responsibility because you both have your own careers probably at its height, and then if you have children, that becomes a big responsibility, and then your parents as well. So it's all at the same time. Next, I'd like to talk a bit about your academic achievements.
Yeah.
Your parents gave you a good education. You went to Belmont Junior School, and how was that?
Well, that was a very interesting time in my life. I've got one sister, so there's just the two of us. She's 1 year older than I am.
Right.
And I went to Belmont Junior School of Mill Hill. The aim was always to move from Belmont to Mill Hill, but my father played golf with the Mill Hill Masters, and they said the school's gone downhill. But I was very athletic. I did shooting. I did the shooting at the Bisley, and even though I had to forge the date of birth, etc., to qualify, but that was life. I played tennis, I played golf, I played rugby, I played football, I swam, I did athletics, and I think it just made me very, very competitive, with the sporting angle, and my marks were much higher I was always 1 or 2 in the classes, in terms of, especially in the mathematical field, etc.
Right.
So going back to your earlier question, or maybe why didn't I go into medicine, right? Well, the answer was, one, you got all the problems, right? And secondly, I was excelling in mathematics, right? I ended up in investment banking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. There wasn't the money in investment banking, etc., in those days as there is today, right? The big bang in the city in the UK, globalization, etc., has made the compensation ridiculous as far as in some of the financial fields.
And you saw that all change during your career. So you went in when it wasn't that lucrative, and then it became.
I started seeing it as being lucrative probably around about 1986, when I got a job as a summer student. Talk about coincidences, which I don't believe in, that we were at a dinner, and my father went up to this person. Oh, you must meet my son, because I used to drive my father, because I was old enough, and he would drink and he would have to make a speech. This person said, "Oh, I'm a partner in an actuarial firm. What do you do?" I said, "I'm doing actuarial science at City University," which was CAS, and as you're probably aware, had to change its name to Bayes because Sir John Cass was involved in slavery, and so therefore we had 12 alumni meetings, hours and hours, just to change the name, which I don't think you can change history. So
he got cancelled.
He got cancelled. Yeah, basically. So the painters and decorators got a good job in terms of changing everything on the letterhead went different. But it was there that I basically got a job as a summer student. I got paid £3 an hour was my wage, and 15 pence a day in lunch and vouchers. Would you believe? Because that was the tax dodge at the time, right? So you got 75p, right? Didn't even buy you a sandwich, not in those days. The head of recruitment said, "I suggest you come and join us. Enjoy your last year at university. Don't bother looking for a job. We're one of the top 2 firms, and we like the work you did." I did 80, 90 hours a week at that time. Then I worked out, and then I became the youngest equity partner at a firm, Bacon and Woodrow. Since then, they've all merged, the Towers Watsons, the Tillinghast, and Aon, and they're all under the Aon umbrella. So.
Sure. So it was when you were at Bacon and Woodrow that you became a client of Princess Diana, correct?
That is correct. Right. Yes. That I can speak a little bit about. Right. There's a certain amount that is confidential, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
So I just they held what we call in the industry a beauty parade, whereby they got submissions from 4 of the leading firms with the named individuals, I was the youngest by a long way. The other put up senior partner and this, that, and the other. I was head of the international investment consultancy, she chose me.
Why do you think?
I think that she wanted someone younger, someone enthusiastic, and someone that she could relate to.
So you were 30 years old at the time, which is pretty young.
The rather amusing that she had to come to our offices. So I used to go to Kensington Palace to go and see her, but she had to come to our offices. So I gave her an hour or so of tutorial. What is an equity? What is a bond? I throw in a joke every so often, right? And the joke would be, picking fund managers, and you're going to see 4 today, is a bit like picking horses. Runners, you look at the form, the runners and riders, and you choose the favourite or the one that you want. And she said, "Oh, Nigel, I don't like horses. The Queen likes horses, right? I like rugger." And of course, she was having an affair with Will Carling at the time, etc. Right. I also told her that it was reported in the press that £17 million was her settlement. Yeah. I also explained to her that was not a lot of money.
I was going to say, when I saw the old articles, and to think that today, I mean, the King of England, it's worth, at least £2 billion or something?
Yep.
I mean, it's almost unquantifiable considering his face is on the money. But yeah, £17 million, even in those days, seems pretty small.
Yeah, and the solicitors got really cross with me because they hailed it as a triumph, right? So, and then, I cracked a few more jokes, and the sun was shining. I had my notes in front of me, right, that I was going through the presentation, try and make things simple, and then here are the questions to ask the fund managers to engage, right?
So your job was to find her fund managers?
Yes.
That's right.
Correct. Okay. First of all, define her strategy. how much equity, how much bonds she should be in, right? She was looking at buying a house at Wentworth, which was about 5 million, right? Stamp duty was only 1% in those days, by the way, not 12, right? And she had to provide her own security, her own chauffeur, her own staff, her own clothes. I'm sure she'd have got sponsorships, etc. Yeah,
Which at the time was totally necessary. I mean, because she was probably one of the most famous individuals on the planet at that point, especially at the divorce time with Charles. Must have been like media frenzy everywhere she goes.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when she came to our office in London Bridge, right, the whole area was cordoned off for 2 miles, right, with security. So that showed, because she was still under the protection.
Protection. So once she got the divorce, then she lost that, and she had to pay for her own anti-paparazzi men, basically.
Yeah, but of course, if you look at the calendar, she died. The divorce settlement was on the 1st of September, 1996. And she died 1 year later, exactly.
Wow.
Which
on the day?
On the day.
To the divorce. That's weird.
That is... so we're going to have to wait 50 years, I think, until all the records get public,
Really?
as to what really did happen, right? I still, having known her so well, struggle to think that Dodie Fayed had a chauffeur and was under the influence of alcohol and drugs. I can't believe, right, that you've got a professional chauffeur or that is used to Dodie say, we go here, we go there, we go here, we go there, and allow him to drink.
On the job,
I don't believe that, right? So
you think what the autopsy report wasn't accurate, or that the driver was drugged unknowingly to him, or it's just speculation?
50 years, but it's amazing how things come out that Fayed, the father, now is under investigation with the brother for sexual abuse of young children, which is amazing, right? Amazing.
During his Harrods days, right?
Yeah, during his Harrods days, yeah.
That's interesting. I'm sure there's lots of conspiracy theories about that. But
the other one, which is semi-confidential, was that we were sitting like this, right, and I couldn't read my notes, and she's wearing this beautiful white Balmain blazer, right, 6 gold buttons with the crest, and the sun was shining. I couldn't read my notes, and she said, "Nigel, call me Di, by the way. We're over the mom. So okay." She said, "Are you looking at my boobs?" And everyone looked in the room, and she said, "Gotcha." and so there was a quote that she leaked that she enjoyed meetings with me and that she enjoyed my sense of humor. And if you look at the money that accumulated over the period, you'll find that it was a very successful investment strategy.
Oh, really? What did you end up putting her into? Are you allowed to say more or less?
Equities, bonds, some real estate that was not direct but indirect through trusts, and I gave allocations as to when I thought markets were overvalued. We went lighter on equities, right? More into bonds, and so the tactical asset allocation added a lot of money. So it's public record that that they, I think Harry got 25 million or something like that.
Oh, really?
Out of his share, and
that was
William was
because
the same.
they divorced one, and then she passed 1 year later. So
they weren't because they were still children, so they weren't entitled to the money at that time.
I see. And
so the money was still growing.
Okay, that makes sense. So 17 turned to 25 for his share. I assume that's half.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
17 to 50. Yeah, that's good returns.
Yep.
And how was she as a person to deal with?
Very, very easy, right? But she knew how to play the press at the end of the day, right? People didn't give her credit for how smart and switched on she actually was. That's my view, and never underestimate someone that, tries to play the fool or something like that. Yeah. She had a bit of a vicious temper as well with the press, right? But at one minute she's feeding the press, at the next minute she's criticizing the press, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of celebrities have a love-hate relationship with the attention and the press, and they want it, and then they don't want it at times.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was appointed and it became public, right? I met with the Daily Mirror. His name was, I think, Graham Bruff or whatever was and he said, "I'm your point man, right? So if you get contacted by any other member of press, you don't speak to them, you ring me straight away. Here's my number, etc." Don't forget, mobiles were the size of a brick, right? In those days, and cost £1 a minute, right? But they didn't care, right? So they had a bleeper and things like that. Right. So fortunately, that wasn't required. But
you never had to call him and say, "Hey, pull your guys off me."
No, but the interesting thing is, and I think he's one of the best reporters, is that my secretary, Nicolette Oliver, right? So I would sit here. She would sit where you are. And she was the niece of Piers Morgan. And Piers Morgan would keep ringing Nicolette and say, "Can I speak to Nigel, please? Please, just 5 minutes." And said, no, you can't, right? And so, as you know, if you saw the morning show, when Piers Morgan had the argument with saying, Meghan has decided that she doesn't want to, or she would prefer to leave the country because she doesn't want, the publicity, etc., and that she doesn't want to be in the set. And Harry, then went along with it. So I think that and Piers Morgan just said, "Well, rubbish," and he has the best reporters. So he said, "Well, why didn't you say that you had offered Netflix and Disney and another company and got them bidding for the rights, right, in podcasts and areas like that, series, which you started 3 weeks ago, right, and now you're signing deals." And I know that for a fact. And he just got his towel up, threw it down, and then said, "Forget it, that's it." Yeah.
Right, yeah. He wasn't the biggest fan of her, from what I remember, during that period. And I think a lot of the British press turned on her as well. If you look at
Absolutely,
if you look at how they portrayed the way she was doing things, and then compared to William's wife, the same thing, but was spun negatively. Some people did like a side-by-side analysis of when she was holding her pregnant belly, it was somehow twisted into some negative thing versus Catherine. But yeah, they've gone to the States now, and they don't seem to be coming back, or doesn't seem to be healed. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the royal drama, but it seems.
Rumor is that they've got separate bedrooms, but that's rumor.
Right. Yeah.
I can't comment.
You can't
can't
verify
really
or deny.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So, did you have any fond memories with her?
Yeah, many. In terms of the meetings that as I said before, that she was understated. She got it. She actually started to understand investment. Right. She actually was asking, why is it that they bought this share or that share and things like that? So but she was always very cordial, always very pleasant as well.
That's cool. I'd like to go back to your time with Goldman Sachs. I mean, how was it working in that environment? And what was the culture like? You became a partner, and you were there as a partner for 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that must have been a lot of hard work to get there.
I think, right, as an investment consultant, I thought I knew it all, right? And I was young, I was arrogant, and then when in 1997, 8, there were 200 partners in Goldman Sachs globally, right? I was interviewed by 53 partners over 6 months. I was flown to Boston, to San Francisco, to South Africa, to Japan, all over the world, right? Because I was supposed to be on a partner track, but they didn't have that. So they dangled the carrot, right? They don't do that today. You have 2 or 3 interviews, you get a part of 1,000 CVs, and you have a 3% chance of making it to the next stage. So I was lucky, and I did a cross-divisional role, which was I worked in our equity trading business, our asset management business, our fixed income currency commodity business, our investment banking business, and our principal business, which came under fire following the subprime mortgages, etc., that you couldn't invest. Goldman couldn't invest, so much money. The pitch at Goldman Sachs was, hi, I'm partner, right, and I'm putting in, Goldman Sachs is putting a third of 10 billion, so we're putting in 3 billion. I'm putting in 50, but they didn't mention that they weren't paying the fees and that they were actually getting the carry as well. And that's how they were so successful. But they had super deal flow.
So they got people, investors into deals by giving them the assurance. They were also putting their money on the line. And
Absolutely.
Was, this is a Goldman Sachs approved. They've passed through the due diligence. They like it. So that's halfway there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that happens in a lot of deals. Still, like people follow other people. Well, if those guys are going in, we'll go in as well.
Yeah.
And
most deals ended up being joint ventures, i.e. that Goldman would be lead, and then they would have 2 sub-underwriters as well, J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, or some of the big names.
I mean, to the average person on the street, when you speak about these multi-billion-pound or dollar deals, it just seems so far from anybody's everyday reality. How was it dealing in those sort of numbers and that amount of zeros on the ends of the deals? Would you say it was the same amount of work as like a 10 million deal to like a 10 billion deal, or it's not? It's not 1,000 times more work.
It's not 1,000 times more work. And some of the fees are outrageous, right? But they're very variable, right? So in up markets they make a lot of money, right? Because they're charging a percentage of the deal, right? In down markets, they cut the compensation, but they have a management group of 30 people, and they reduce that, and basically those top 30 people get paid a lot of money, right? And then the money trickles down, even for the associates and the analysts, they get paid very well.
So when you become a partner, what exactly happens? You're suddenly in this partner group, and you get equity in. Is that in the?
That used to be the way until I was just too late in joining. So they had the IPO planned in '99, I think, which got cancelled. And then it was a slim vote in 2000. Then they went public, and most the shares were $55 a share. They gave 10% of the shares to employees, 90% to 212 partners, which ended up being on average worth about $200 million a piece. And most of them have now gone on to be successful other businesses, and I was at a dinner in New York earlier this year. I was out of 12 people, I was the only non-billionaire actually sat round the table. But,
so those were all Goldman guys?
Those are all Goldman alumni, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So I'm sure you'll get there.
One hopes. Maybe I've got to transfer it to the old peseta or something like that, or the Italian lira,
Become a billionaire in lira. So then what changes when you become a partner, generally, from your day-to-day? Suddenly you're involved in the strategy and the direction of your division? Or
and I would say that once you get to partner, managing director is the next level down. So you're called a partner managing director. I would say that there are probably 10 people with knives ready to stick in your back that are MDs that if you slip up once, will, like wildfire, have, report that he made a mistake on this and this, that, and the other. Some people, to get up to the really high level, you have to walk through that front door, behave in a way that you and I would feel uncomfortable in the way you treat people, right?
In what way? Like
aggressive,
arrogant,
right?
Kind of that old school masculine.
Well, it wasn't old school.
No?
This is what I call it.
Still today.
This is the new school, right?
The new school.
The new school, the way they do it. So I always remember one partner in the old 212 that he came along to me. So we were doing a big commodity trade in oil and did 18 months work on it, right? And we only got paid on execution, right? So if he didn't execute, we made no money. So it was 18 months work down the road, right? And the guy was down, and everyone was criticizing him, right? And the partner of the desk came over and sat and said, "Don't worry, there'll be other deals. Don't worry," right? And then he turned around to all the colleagues on the desk and he said, "When you work that hard on putting a deal together, right, you don't kick someone when they're down. When they execute the deal and they make a big number, that's the time when you draw them down a peg or two, right? Because they can take the criticism at that time, knowing that they've made a lot of money, made the firm a lot of money, and will get paid well. But that's just the ethos,
So it was quite a cutthroat environment. So once you'd made it to partner, could you lose that status and stay in the firm, or was it like when you say these other guys wanted to, looking for an opportunity for you to slip up? Would they be like, if you slipped up, you just be out, or can you be demoted from partner or no?
Combination, but at the end of the day, some of the managing directors were paid more than the partners. It wasn't an old-fashioned, like a Bacon and Woodrow rung function whereby you start at 50% profit, 55, 60, per year of service, right? It was, you
could jump.
You could get paid, the base salary of a partner is like $1 million, right? You could get paid as a partner $2 million at the end of the year, total comp, right? But as an MD, if you had a really good year and not a partner, you could get $5 million.
Right, based on your team's work.
Based on your team's work,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were making. Well, when you're doing
they're money orientated.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
So how was it being in that money orientated environment for so long?
17 years was enough for me.
Right.
17 years was enough for me. And then I did something very stupid, which was, well, two things that were stupid. One, which was I lived in a large house in Hampstead, and there's normally 2-3 people in the house. I heard the dogs barking, and I was in my suit, tie, right, and friend offered to drive me to the bank, and I climbed a wheelie bin, and then I climbed the fence, And then I stood on top and looked back and went, oh, whatever. And then went for, oh, and then I thought, right, I jumped and I broke my calcaneum. So that was a posh word for my ankle,
Right.
which connects about 200 bones in the foot.
Man.
And so I had to have surgery. And so that was a big mistake because I could no longer go. I was traveling to 3 or 4 countries in a week in Europe,
wow.
right? Sometimes I did New York, twice in a week, right? Fly Sunday, arrive late Sunday night, do morning calls, get up 5 o'clock, have some tea toast delivered to orange juice to the room, do my UK calls, then have breakfast meeting, and then lunch, dinner, and then fly back for my meeting, go home, shower, change, and then be back in the office to...
So it was a lot of relationships. You were flying to these places for clients, for investors?
Yes,
And
yes.
just to have the face-to-face, which is important, right?
Face-to-face is far important, yeah. I mean, we still have not recovered from COVID, right? People turn their computers on Monday mornings and pretend that they're working, and they then respond on Friday afternoon, and that's they're not that. Britain is not working at this moment in
You
time.
think that the Zoom culture has been a bad thing?
I think it had its use at the time. You look at the other things that COVID, right? You look at the CEO of Peloton, right?
Yeah.
So most people bought Peloton bikes. Anna bought a Peloton. They were twice the price of everything else, right?
Have they gone bankrupt?
Well, the CEO had $100 million worth of stock, right? That's what his value went up to. And he kept all of it, right? And then, when people were going back to work and that you had to pay a subscription to participate with other people, the company, his shares were worth about $5 million, and he had margin loans in houses, etc. So he filed for Chapter 11. I don't know the end result.
Oh, yeah, no, I remember my sister got a Peloton and then ended up giving it back as well. So obviously it was a little craze. They liked the idea, the concept, and then eventually, I guess, got bored of it because at the end of the day, it was just an exercise bike, right?
Yeah.
With some programs attached.
Yeah.
Cool. So now, so you left Goldman after your accident.
Yep.
Because you weren't able to travel, etc.
Yep.
And then you just thought, was it your decision or the firm's decision, or was it mutual? Or
It was mutual.
right.
Yeah.
You just thought, okay, this is
I mean,
going to work. Maybe this is God's intervention for me to have a break from all this as well.
Look, BA Terminal 5, right? I need wheelchair assistance or a buggy because typically the flights leave from Gate C, right? So it's I'm puffed
Like
out.
half an hour or something.
It is, yeah. So I couldn't do that. So it was,
So
and
you couldn't perform your
just
function of your job, which was this networking going around and
absolutely.
right.
But I still speak to clients and keep in touch with the serious clients. And I said at my father's 80th birthday, we had a big function for him where people came in. We had 70 people at the Lanesborough. And I said, you're the luckiest person in the world. I may have earned more money in 1 year that you earned in 10, right? But you never had a boss, right?
Yeah.
You were always your own boss, right?
Yeah.
Which has its pros and its cons. So I decided to set up my own business, pick people that are the top of their field, probably mid-50s, etc. So they've made money so that they're willing to chip in. It doesn't cost them any money. I front all that. I give the shares away, a certain amount of shares. I keep 51% of the voting rights. Right. So I have control over that. We have change of control, so that we've now got distribution in South Africa, in UK, up north, Switzerland, Portugal, and looking at how China's very difficult, but we're looking at that, and Korea. Yeah.
And that idea is under your company Mayfair Capital, right?
Yeah, Mayfair
Right.
Capital.
So that's Mayfair Capital, and the idea is to kind of replicate what you were doing at Goldman.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. People will laugh, but it's a mini Goldman Sachs, right?
Why not? Why not?
Well, because Goldman Sachs employs 37,000 people, right? So, and that they have a huge touch, but they still want to speak to me, right? So, and the Goldman Sachs alumni is very strong.
Sure. So you're still in that network, and they've left, and
yeah.
I'm sure once they've built that trust and reputation.
I mean, I had a 2-hour conference call yesterday with my mentor, Tom Healy, who's a real star. He was in the U.S. Treasury before, and he worked for James Baker, etc. And we had a 2-hour conversation on a research project we're going to do on the grid. So, which is going to cost a lot of money.
What, on the electricity grid?
On the electricity grid.
Of the UK?
UK and US, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, it's going to be cost effective for governments because we're going to replace index-linked gilts with that they're holding with a deal of fixing the grid and the supply, to make sure that we don't end up, and there's a lot of people looking at it now.
What's wrong with the grid in general?
No work's been done on it in 40 years.
Right. So it's the same, and is it vulnerable to attack, things like that, from cyber attack?
Power cuts, slowness of, things. It's the same as people inserting from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4 to 5G. It's the same equivalent type of
fiber optic
upgrades.
Right. So the distribution network grid itself needs to be seriously upgraded.
Seriously, yes.
I'm guessing enormous cost.
Huge cost. Yeah, you're talking $100 billion, something like that.
Wow. So how do you put together $100 billion deal?
You basically do a deal. The government gives a project, which is they give you a floor return. Let's say it's 5%, and they put a cap of 10% that you can get on that. Right.
Okay.
It's like government guaranteed, right? So let's say you have 100 million of expenditure to start with, right, for the planning and things like that, right? You then draw down 100 million in cash, right, and give them the note of this, and you put some senior secured debt, right, on top. So you're talking about a return of maybe 13, 14% per annum, which is government guaranteed, which is in comparison to 1%, 2% real return on index linked at the moment.
So that ends up being attractive. That's a way to get you to raise funds from the private sector to invest into that.
Correct.
Right.
With a government guarantee.
Guarantees.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. No. So was there a lot of that happening with Goldman? Like a lot of...
They're all over it, but the idea only came across my desk in March when somebody had mentioned it to me in the UK. I was at the dinner in New York, and then this guy Tom Healy then said, "Well, the grid, it's like the highways that needed repairing, and they just put extra money on top." $5 or whatever. That's how people paid for it. Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. So I guess you've built up this network internationally of people in high places, in the decision makers, the sort of guardians of large funds. And now every conversation can just spring up a business idea, and you can just
Correct.
then put it all together, the structuring, and then raise the finance for it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
That's interesting. Cool. Do you want to just have a little break? Just take 5. Looking back at your life and your career, are there any regrets you have?
I have lots of regrets, actually, Darius, that my wish once I had financial security was to have a lot of children. And I had a close group of friends. One was a Swedish female failed pop star, right? But and she had a boyfriend as well. But we agreed, we got married in Las Vegas, and I took legal advice so that then we could do surrogacy. All I wanted was, a maternal instinct, right? A surrogate and 6 children or something like that, right?
Through her. So you made a deal with her to have your kids?
Yeah.
But that you weren't in a relationship?
No, she was in a relationship with the others. So,
okay.
So here's the bit that's going to shock a number of people. Was between 1974 and 1977, when I was a park boarder, I was sexually molested by, not my parents, but by a member of Henley Golf Club. That he would see my father's car parked in the car park at the golf club. He'd pop round, and my mother didn't want to speak to him. So he said, I'll go out and play drafts with Nigel. And I just blocked that out, right? And I don't know how, right?
How old were you?
I was from 74, so I had 9 till 11.
Right. So he was caretaking you while you were there?
Yeah.
Right.
So the first thing my father did was wait until Anna came back from boarding school to say, has he made any approach on you? And the answer was no. The third thing he did was he went to go and get some morphine. And I said, no, this is not the way to sort it out.
But your father wanted to get morphine
sorry, I missed a step, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't know about it, right? Okay. And I blocked it out, right?
He never found out at the time?
No. In 1991, right, that they found gay magazines in the car, right? So I used to get driven to Hendon Central Station to go to work, etc. My parents would still have me living with them if they could, right? They didn't want to let us go. And so then my father said, well, it could be a phase. So he got the psychiatrist at the Royal Free to come to the house. He said, would you agree to just meet with him? We were with him 5 hours. I was with him 5 hours. And then he came. He said, I got to speak to your parents now. And he spoke to my parents, and that my parents went bananas.
Why? What was the conclusion of your 5-hour chat?
The conclusion was Nigel doesn't have the problem. He is a gay man, right? There are 3 reasons. This is contentious, right? There are 3 reasons. One is it's hereditary in terms of you're gay. Secondly, there's been a bad childhood in terms of domestic violence or something like that. And the third is just a freak, right? But today, it's more accepted, right? Because there are more gay people and coming out, etc., and that are well known. So it's all right if you're in the arts or if you're music or whatever, but gradually more and more people are coming out, and they know people, and they're all of these things, right, have their cycles. But still today, right? You talk about diversity, right? I think diversity's got too hard. To get a job as a male Caucasian, right, in any organization today is absolutely, hard, right?
The bottom of the pile. Now.
Yeah, females first, right? Men of color second, right? And lesbian and gay people, etc., LGBT, right, are get the minor jobs and promotions, etc. There, and it may be lip service that people say, so that a load of hedge funds and the CEO of Goldman Sachs came out say he's in favor of gay marriage, etc. And I know some of the gay people in Goldman Sachs, right? I used to see them, and they never made partner. They were, top quality people, right?
Right.
But one was Kissinger's advisor before joining Goldman. He was promised partnership. They found out he was gay, and anyway. So
would you say there was a anti-gay sentiment in those days in Goldman?
Everywhere.
Everywhere in the world of finance.
In the world of finance.
Right.
Yes.
So would you say that most gay people had to stay in the closet?
Yeah.
At least in the work environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ones that came out suffered in terms of
compensation.
Their careers never proceeded like they should have progressed.
Correct.
Right.
And you got the pink pound, so they don't have family. So then suddenly the smart people realise actually this is a good market, and so
no kids,
and they've got more expenditure. So therefore, let's get more money.
Yeah. Right. But now, I mean, at least on the surface of it, things are quite different. I mean, Goldman
on the surface,
they sponsor gay pride events. They have these. I just saw on the LinkedIn of Goldman. They celebrate pride around the world in all their offices. You know, they have like inclusion programs, association groups. At least they've done that minimum too.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
And I think that they have made great steps for them, right? If it was a banking project or something like that, it would have been done in 2 years, not 6, right? And the other thing being that it's still not accepted by all the clients, right?
That's the thing, because the guys with the money, if they don't like it.
A typical pension fund, right, will have senior management, a CFO, CEO, etc. on the board, right? And they'll have member-nominated trustees like trade unions and ordinary shop floor workers, etc. And you'll find that there would be a bias actually that is in there. Yeah, right. I did a pitch. Somebody wanted me to. Quite a wealthy family wanted me to set up a family office for them. And this was actually through Mayfair Capital. This is a year ago, right? So not I hadn't got the FSA or the FCA approval yet. I was going for change in control, but I was able to talk so far, right? And they basically the whole 6 members of the family actually sat down, and they appointed a female, right? And the headhunter, right, rang me to say, "Oh, we're delighted that for diversity reasons that we've appointed a female." I said, "Well, good luck, right? I would have appointed the best person, right? And for what they wanted, I have all the qualifications, and I knew the person that was there, right?" And 4 months later, I get a knock on the door from the youngest son, who must have been mid-20s, said, "We've had a discussion. Would you become joint CIO of our family office, right?" Yeah. And I said, "Joint with who?" And with this lady, I said, "Well, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, right? I made predictions, right, in my written submission, right? That I didn't like certain markets, didn't like currencies and whatever, right? And she lost 500 million in, some of it came back probably, right? In 6 months, which is a lot of money.
How big was the fund? Or the family
It was just over 10 billion pounds, right? And, but you had to use the consultants, which having grown up in the consulting business, I know their limited knowledge in globalization, etc. And so I said, no, I'm no one's second fiddle. So they said, but we'll pay you more money. I said, money can't buy integrity.
So they wanted to keep her after that still.
They didn't want to upset her. Right. They'd signed a contract, right? Okay. And it helped their diversity quota. Even though it's a family office, it's not a public company. It's not, Goldman Sachs insists every public company has 2 females on their board now, right? They don't insist that you have a man of color or a gay person on the board, right? Otherwise, would be inundated. Right. I think the most successful gay finance director is the person that runs Pets Are Us or Pets Are Home. Pets Are Home, right. Which is a FTSE company. And good luck to him.
So like you didn't count as a diversity hire then at that point?
No one knew. No one knew.
Right. So when did you? I
did a deal. I did a deal with my father. So you got to remember that this is 91, so he's 60 years old. We sat around the dining room table and he said, nobody is to know about this, right, until I die, right? And my mother said, I agree. And Anna said, I agree. And I said, why? And he said, because it happened under my own roof and I did not protect my son. And I cannot forgive myself for that. Right. And still, just before he had his stroke and all that, right, even I wasn't expecting him to live this long, right? I wasn't expecting him to live another 33 years, right, following that discussion. But but even at 80th birthday, right, he said, right, I'm not mentioning the fact, etc., that you're gay, etc.
So he said it happened under his roof. Did he mean the sexual abuse which you suffered, or
yes, the sexual,
which he tied to the being gay, or caused you being gay?
Yes,
right.
Yes, which is what he was told was one of the 3 links by the psychiatrist.
Is that proven now? Scientifically, is there a scientific reason why people are gay?
I'll tell you the problem is people don't always tell the truth and people don't always respond to the surveys, and you don't get enough people to get good confidence intervals. They've tried, etc. And there's a lot of ambiguous questions that you can tick the box, right? But I can tell you there's 2 gay cruise companies that they have 5,000 gay people, right, on the cruise. They do 6 of them a year, right? So, and they come from all over the world, right? And they're not cheap, right? But so there's a lot around, right. And still a lot will just hand a card to you, right? Not their business card, right? But just home card, etc. If they're in London, if they're in whatever, that's amusing. But
still quite discreet.
It's still discreet. I think my most disappointing time was so I read. You didn't have computers in those days, etc. So you didn't have these apps. Grindr, these apps, or the Tinder, or the whatever, right? And you didn't have photographs, etc. So I went to this gay club that he said it opened from 10 p.m. right? So I went at 10:05. And I went downstairs and I stayed till 10:30. And there were 5 people in this huge club, huge.
Where's this, in London?
In London, yeah.
Right.
It was just off Tottenham Court Road. It used to be called Busby's. And I went home, cried. I thought there were only 5 gay people in London, right. and I was one of them. And I went to Compton's, which was a bit of an older man's type of drinking place. And one guy came up and said, "You look miserable. Why are you miserable?" I said, "Well, you know, there are more people here than there were in the club." He said, "Right, next Saturday, come meet us here at 10 o'clock. We'll go and have something to eat, right? And then we'll go to the club, right?" And I kept looking at my watch. I'm going, "Well, this is difficult. Yeah, we're going to be late." Yeah. Anyway, we arrived, went down the stairs, 1:15. The place was packed. I said, "I like him, I like him, I like him, I like him." And that was it, you know. And then, you know, there was more tolerance, more venues that opened, you know. But now a lot of them are closing. A lot of the venues are closing now, yeah.
What, the venues in general, or
in
the gay
general?
venues?
No, venues generally.
Venues in general.
Yeah. We still have not recovered from the COVID expenditure, right? We still haven't recovered. And there, you know, I don't know whether you've seen, flus are up, you know, by a huge percentage so far with the number of people admitted to hospital, and they're afraid of this new strain of COVID to come, right? So,
and these other viruses.
And the other viruses. You know, so I'm jabbed up to the hill, right? Yeah.
Right. So you believe in the jabs and the vaccines?
I do. Yes.
Good. Yeah, I've managed to get away with not getting many flu jabs during my life. Somehow, seemed to be okay. But I put that down to me being vegan. But that's a whole nother story. Interesting. So things have changed. Like, so during your lifetime, in the world of finance, it must have been very harsh back in the day towards the attitude towards gays, but now it's opened up quite a lot. Do you still like worry about people knowing, especially clients?
Yeah. But I'm just open about it now. I'm fortunate enough that I have enough to survive, right? And that I can, you know, choose my clients. I don't have to beg for clients anymore, right? I don't need the client to actually pay my electricity bills and gas bills and things like that. Yeah, right. Or my current partner's issue.
So you never had any discrimination explicit, or have you suffered?
Yep, I suffered a bit at Goldman Sachs. I would say, so my first proper partner, I went out with him for 14 years. Right. And I went on a field trip to India, to China, first of all. And then we went from China to India, right? And it's 6.5 hours time difference with India, right? And I would speak to my partner before, and anyway, he was in court the following day, so his mother, father, etc., were all staying in the house, etc., and it was because he was speeding over whatever. It was a minor offence, right? And but he had to appear. And he died. He died of something called SUDEP, sudden unexpected death due to epilepsy, right? And so I had to arrange he had to have, because he hadn't been seen by a doctor, he had to have an autopsy, right? He then had to, I then did a requiem mass for him in Soho. I then arranged...
So this is after flying back from India?
So right. Just,
so
it was a lonely flight. Yeah, right. I'd say people said, "Nigel, You're not your normal jokey, laughy self at
Because
the dinner.
Because nobody at work knew
No one
that
knew
you were gay and that you had this long-term partner, and then you couldn't even say, "Oh, by the way, my 14-year-old boyfriend's like my 14-year-old relationship boyfriend's just died."
At the age of 37.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So but I had someone else in my life who came along, picked me up, but I didn't leave the house for a long time. Right. You know, I did a lot of telephone calls, not Zooms, but telephone calls, and then I went up to Edinburgh because I was served with the writ at the time for the divorce from my ex-wife.
Right.
Thinking that I'd be at the weakest point in my life with my partner having died, and he could not actually give evidence, right, as he's dead, right? And I got...
He was going to give evidence in what? In the divorce or in the...
Well, that it was an arranged marriage, right? It was on paper, etc., right?
So you ended up marrying to do the surrogate thing.
Correct.
That didn't happen.
That did not happen, no.
But then you were married.
But I was married.
And then you wanted to get a divorce, and she wanted to take
She
you to
sued
the
me for
cleaners.
divorce, yeah.
Right, so she said, "I want a big chunk of your cash," basically.
Huge amount of cash, yes.
Right.
Clean me out.
Okay, and you were going to say, "Actually, I've been gay this whole time. This was all a sham."
Well, that was all in the statements, exchange of statements, right? As you know, lawyers aren't cheap, right?
Yeah.
So my legal fees were £1 million, right, alone. And 3 years in the High Court. This went on for 3 years, right?
For a divorce?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the judge looked down at her. She was dressed to the nines in her dress, manicure, pedicure, whatever. And the judge said, "Which of the 3 stories would you like us to believe today, Miss Gronkvist?" Right? Because we've got 3 different accounts, right? We have 17 statements, etc., from Mr. O'Sullivan's friends, right? And we have 1 statement from your mother. And your mother actually said that Nigel flew over to Sweden and asked for hand in marriage, and that she would be settled for life and that she would never have to work again, this, that, and the other. And I produced my passport to actually show I was in New York on the dates when she said that I'd actually flown to Sweden.
Right. So that was all
So,
just lies.
but in family law, you can lie through the teeth, right?
Right.
He said, she said, he said, she said, right? But in criminal law, you can be done for perjury, etc. Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then, how did the divorce settlement end up? Like, I guess you wanted to just annul the marriage, I would have guessed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was annulled. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then she got paid as well.
She got paid, and she stole the money because I wanted to give 4 to 6 children a guarantee in the event of something happening to me that I wouldn't go through the problems that I went through when I was younger, that my father was in financial difficulties, that there'd always be money there.
For your eventual children,
for the
which
eventual
never
children,
happened anyway.
Which never happened.
Okay.
But we were joint signatories.
Oh.
And she cleaned the money out.
Oh, damn. Right.
So 4 million went out the door.
Just like that. Damn.
On top of another 6 figures come on top as well.
Good. Yeah. Have to be careful about getting married.
We were in Las Vegas, and the witnesses were friends of mine, mate. And they said, "Let's go and get a prenup and go and sign one," right?
Yeah.
And she said, "We're friends. We've been friends for years, and we don't need a prenup." And I was so stupid. I was so stupid.
They've only just started to stand up in courts prenups in the UK family law, from what I've understood. Like until quite recently, the last few years, prenups just weren't even recognized because they would always say, "Oh, you were emotionally under the influence of your emotions at the time when you signed or something."
Yeah.
But now I understand they're starting to accept them more here. I know in the US it's been big for many years, but
in our Mayfair Capital business, I insist in prenups being a prerequisite, right?
for the clients,
For the intergenerational wealth, right? So when the father dies and the son wants to get married, that there's more money in their pot, right? The only small print is unless she has got more money than you have.
yeah. Then
assuming male and vice versa,
sure.
female male. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So tell me about Mayfair Capital. What do you have in the pipeline?
Pipeline, well, as I said, we're trying to be mini investment bank, right? We've done some sponsorship of rugby deals, and we've got a client who has made me guardian for his children, which is quite an onus actually to have.
So he must have been a friend as well.
A good friend, and he's recommended another good friend to me, and it's word of mouth, right? And so that we've got the family office structure, making wills, keeping up to date with tax residency as to where inheritance tax, where capital gains tax are, whether you go to the Bahamas or whether you go, or whether you buy a golden visa to United Arab Emirates, which is where people go, but I'm not keen on Dubai, must admit. But
So where do you see? I mean, must be right on top of it then, with all the changes that are happening in UK tax law now with the new government. Are you seeing a lot of your clients leaving the UK to other places?
There are 5,000 families that are applying to get residency in Monte Carlo, right, per month, right?
From the UK?
From the UK.
Alone?
Wow. 5,000.
Just Monte Carlo?
Just Monte Carlo. And the average flat, because they don't have houses unless you go up into the mountains, and the average flat is about 700, 800 square feet for about 4 or 5 million pounds, right?
That's
insane. Yeah. So, I was involved in putting a syndicate together to buy Manchester United football club when the Glazers are not ready. They kind of like stripped the house of everything, right? They've got bad training ground. They need to rebuild Old Trafford, right? All but 3 of the Manchester United players are for sale now because Jane Ratcliffe, he had Ineos and he moved to Monte Carlo, and his business is starting to do badly, but he's realizing that he paid £2.5 billion for 25% of the shares and committed £2.5 billion to rebuild the training ground and everything like that. On top. Wow. So, needless to say, you as an actuary, I look at the downside first, right, before I start looking at the upside. That's just
risk management.
You
think that's a bad deal for him? He's made a bad deal for himself.
He got just caught up in the
because he was a fan.
That's
the danger, right?
He supposedly had like $15 billion or whatever, so he could afford it, etc. They had a poor season. When I looked at Manchester United share price, they were $10 a share, and then they went to $30 a share. So and they were regular sellers as well, but they had Malcolm Glazer, the father actually. So he had 6 children, left them equal shares each, but they were all of the voting shares, even though that they had free float from the others. So, but if any of the siblings sold the shares, the votes got transferred to the other siblings.
I see.
So Arve and Joel, don't want to sell. He's chairman and whatever. They didn't want to sell. So the others did want to sell, but if they got this deal, which was ridiculous, right?
Right. So then they would always maintain control in the family. So
Yeah,
it's
correct.
pretty hard to make a takeover bid.
Very, very difficult.
Unless they're all in. So
Yeah.
you're putting that together now to try and buy off them.
Given up on that one. That was
you gave up on
that?
that?
Was too hard.
Right. Yeah.
9 months, 12 months of work, too hard.
Right. And they're not the most popular in Manchester, from what I understand.
If they were to be within a mile of the ground, they would be lynched.
Really? It's that bad?
Yeah, it's that bad. It's that bad.
Interesting.
Because you go to Manchester City have got a super training ground. They've got a super stadium, etc. And they've got a sale and lease back with the government, with the council.
With Manchester, right.
So Manchester United were trying to do the same thing, right? But the government doesn't have that money, right? They've tied up the capital in Manchester City, which is why Manchester City win everything, except, well, of course, Manchester United did win the FA Cup or the Cup recently. So.
Yeah, interesting. So you're involved in sport investment. You mentioned rugby. What are you doing there?
Rugby, well, the London Irish, and I know a lot of the building contractors, etc., are interested in supporting London Irish. They went bust, and people lost a lot of money in there, about 30 million, something like that. We're speaking to the insolvency practitioners and the planners, and we're looking at buying a French rugby club, another rugby club, and roll in the London Irish. So the capital and interest is guaranteed at 12 to 14%, right, over 3 years, and we will get London Irish actually back as a professional club and be able to pay and get advertising, right, from the builders, right, and be able to build around. And it really is. There's a fair amount of ground around the place, around those grounds, and it's just down by Twickenham, by the River Thames, etc. So not that difficult to get to.
Sure, interesting, cool. And you mentioned a crypto fund. I mean, obviously, since Trump has taken power, crypto is going through the roof. Where do you see Bitcoin reaching?
Well, the first question is there intrinsic value in Bitcoin, yes or no? The answer is no. It has to be traded, right? And when you see the amount of Bitcoin outstanding and the amount that's traded every day, it's huge, right? So it is simply supply demand, right? Pundits, were saying when it was $20,000 a coin that it was going to go to $100,000 or $500,000, right? I mean, it hit $100,000 in 6 months, as you say, and that talking about history, talking about the gold standard and areas like that, is that the US Treasury apparently, I have on, again, rumor, that they have got notes where you can go to the ATM and get, as opposed to $100 bill, you can get $100 worth of gold, right? And use that as trading, etc. And that other companies like Elon Musk companies will be taking cryptocurrency as payment for cars. But the stumbling block is that I'm in a joint venture with I would call him, a super investigator. He comes in and traces fraud, and he's worked for the Fed, the SEC, the FCA, and he sent me a text. He said, even God couldn't push the FCA to work, more quickly than we're going to be 9 months. As I said, that the timing doesn't matter, but it'll be. We've got an ETF in the US, right, that has Bitcoin. We have an ETF with Ethereum. So that's 70% of the market. But now we need to have two other type of Bitcoin. They're moving between them. And it will be the only global fund that. But there's still reticence amongst investors to, and I asked this person, have you ever seen a Bitcoin? And the answer is no.
Because it's just on a wallet somewhere
Yeah,
online.
yeah. Or when Bitcoin was like $25,000, right? What they did was that they put inscribed into a 1 ounce coin of gold, the 1 Bitcoin, right? And 25,000, and it went at auction for $75,000, right? But once you strip off, right, and take that Bitcoin off, right, you've got the Bitcoin value and you've got the gold value, right? But you can't put it back together again, right? And say, I want to hold it again.
So was that like an art piece almost?
Yeah, like art piece.
Like choose one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some other artists have done, I think Damien Hirst did something similar where he did some NFTs where you had the physical painting or the NFT version, and after a certain date, you had to choose which one you wanted.
Yep.
And then it would either burn the painting or destroy or delete the NFT or whatever it was. Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of parallels with gold, at least. Gold has intrinsic value, so that's the big difference. But it's like another fiat in a way. It's just one big confidence trick. If everyone believes in it and everyone trades it and uses it as a store of value, then it will have that value. But if the confidence disappears, then the game's up effectively.
Correct.
But now, from what I've understood from Trump and his speeches, he's speaking about keeping some Bitcoin as part of their reserves too. So if all the central banks start doing that, that itself would hoover up big chunks of Bitcoin, drive the price up, and due to its limited supply, would keep driving the price up.
Yep.
So I guess you're going to benefit from that.
Yeah, could be $1 million. Yeah.
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 Could keep going. Cool. Okay. And besides sports and crypto, you look at a lot of different areas, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at again a little bit of informed information, but it's not 100%. But we are in a very, very difficult time. Right? World War I, World War II, right, were fought on the beaches, etc., with boats and this, that, and the other, and cannons and things like that. But now somebody can press a button and destroy a whole city, right? And the Ukraine, right? I'm sorry, is they've got no roads, no hotels, no apartments, no nothing, right? And the Russians have come in, right? You've got China wanting Taiwan. You've got the Gaza Strip with Israel, etc. that I think Trump's going to come in and start saying we have to redraw some of the lines, right, in exchange for some type of compensation, right, for repair of roads and where that actually cost falls, I don't know, but they're looking at this is what happened to Germany, right? There are two precedents, which is Argentina. Some hedge fund called Elliott bought Argentinian bonds because he used to go there regularly at 7 to 10 cents a share, right? The president of Argentina went to California. Elliott went straight to the court and got the private jet impounded, $500 million worth of jet. They spent a month negotiating. They took his passport away, diplomatic passport. Never been done, right? And bearing in mind he was a hedge fund, so he used his own money, plus he used client money at 2 and 20, right? And he settled for about $4.5 billion, right? Which was like 75 cents on the dollar, right? So he made money on his own investment, and he made 2 and 20 on his client money. Right. So his clients were very happy because they made a very good return, right? You don't mind paying if you get good performance. You mind paying if you start losing money.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was so he'd made that how? By buying, at what price did you say? Had he bought in at?
7 till 9.
7 till 9, then sold for 75.
Yeah.
Wow. So Trump's coming in, offering to redraw lines in exchange, I assume, for security is the main thing he must be saying, right? I'll come in, let's fix this, and then we'll have some third-party security offered by him. Otherwise, he's kind of been talking about staying out of foreign affairs in a lot of ways, besides the Israel.
Well, Elon Musk was very insulted, right? Because he gave Trump 100 million plus for his campaign, right? Which is a lot of money, right? And that he gave we think, the Stormy Daniels or whatever, we think that, because the district attorney put on a huge fine, right? And they managed to postpone, but I think they settled at a lower figure, and that came through a subsidiary, linked to Elon Musk, and that was in excess of 100, right?
So Elon paid for that for the settlement of the Stormy Daniels court case indirectly.
Indirectly, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
As a loan, right? And then he is given in a press statement. So, bearing in mind, Trump's 78 years old, I think. I think he's 78. So the last 4 years, 82, he may be, right? Better than Biden, right? So at least Biden stepped aside, right? But that in a press statement, Trump gave him a role in government, right?
Doge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 18 months, right?
Okay.
He was livid, right? To have given him that amount of money, helped him out, and he was expecting to have a 4-year contract, right? As long as he was president, not a fixed contract for, just
18 months?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
why would he get But why would he not want him there longer if he has been such a strong ally for him?
Because there's only one Donald Trump,
Right.
and he doesn't want competition, does he?
He wants to be the only big dog.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would think a lot of people voted for Trump because of Elon Musk and the team Trump had assembled around him. That was very business
Oriented, yes.
business thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's see. How long's he in? What happens in 18 months then? But I assume, Elon's made serious money already, at least in his net wealth since Trump.
With the
came
Trump
out.
rally, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And his Tesla price gone through this. I think he's worth over 400 bill now.
That's correct.
They're saying he's going to be the world's first trillionaire, which is within sight, I guess. So I guess he's already benefited from whatever 100 million loan he's made.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That was a great trade, even if it was only for 18 months. But let's see. Anyway. Okay. How are you feeling for energy? You okay?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah? You
Fine.
okay? Would you like to go into more of Mayfair Capital? Would you like to go into more what your next what sort of major trends are you seeing? Are you seeing for instance AI and quantum supercomputing? Is that affecting things? I mean,
The amount of investment in AI is quite small on a relative basis, right? But is huge applications, right? I know people are using it like 3 hours a day, right? And it is going to take over jobs, which actually has implications for the employment issues, right? And first mover advantage is not necessarily going to be the best thing, but learning by your mistakes probably does help, and learning by other people's mistakes, providing that there are all types of patents, all types of IP, all types of issues associated with AI at the moment with its applications. It's the lawyers that are making a lot of money at this moment in time, and companies using it, very efficiently. But credit card companies are using AI, and you don't have a bank manager today, right? You just fill in a form, and they check your experience score, and that's it. Yeah.
And your data and the AI is looking across millions of customers and seeing their behavior and how they turned out.
Yeah,
I mean, as an actuary, it must be interesting seeing AI, because AI is basically doing a similar thing in terms of gathering huge amount of data and then helping humans to make decisions on that, which I'm sure happens which is what the whole point of actuary science is, right? To kind of project into the future based on past data and to help identify things that maybe aren't so obvious. Like once you look across the whole data.
And guess how many people have got access to cryptocurrency wallets worldwide?
How many? 100 million? What?
540 million people have got access to crypto wallets, right? So if they put $200 in, $300 in, right, and it goes up, if it goes down, it doesn't matter anyway. And by the way, that is more than the number of bank accounts that exist.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Which absolutely surprised me.
Yeah, how come? What is that? Because there's just such massive amounts of the world that has no bank account? Like less than 500 million, that's less than 10% then.
Yeah, that's correct.
So what's everyone else doing? How are they? Well, they're just
I don't know.
cash.
Well, cash is gone, basically. I mean, going down to the bank to try and get cash, is very, very difficult. You can't get, you can't. I'm speaking to diamond dealers, right? And so they used to deal in cash, but in the US, right, when they say they deal in cash, that means a bank deposit gets fired away into your account straight away, and you pay the taxes, right? So Big Brother is watching you, and you have to just stay on top as to whether you have your company in Delaware or your company in New York or in New Jersey, because they all have different tax rules, and tax rates, and that they're talking here. I don't know, Labour, don't know whether it'll happen, but they talked about the mansion tax,
wealth tax,
1% or 2% of anyone that's got properties greater than 2 million quid, right?
Wow.
I mean, that it really is, with the property prices having gone up, right? And inheritance tax planning is done poorly, and is hit to reach £8 billion, and they reckon that if people are planned properly, it would be less than £1 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
Using the existing
rules and regulations.
They just organize themselves early enough.
Yeah.
Normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem a particularly cruel tax, the inheritance one, especially the way it tapers, because it's like you get punished for your dad dying sooner rather than later. It's like you had less dad, pay us more tax.
Yeah.
If your dad gives it to you and survives 7 years,
Yeah.
You had more dad and more money. So
Yeah.
So the people get punished twice, it seems.
Well, that's why, the big opportunity for Mayfair Capital is the protection of intergenerational wealth.
Right.
So there's one family of Stonehenge Fleming that have got 150 billion under management. 50 billion comes from Robert Fleming and all of it, and 6 generations, etc., for his investment bank. And the other 25 billion is come from Ian Fleming, who wrote the Bond books, Bond 25, right? So, but he's obviously not live anymore, but still gets the royalties every time it's on at Christmas, etc.
I wonder what that is.
Yeah.
Annual.
Huge.
Yeah.
And the income is huge on that money. And the other 100 billion is the South African money, which is why we have an office in South Africa, because the South Africans restricted the amount of money that you could actually export.
Yeah.
Right? And so lots of wealthy South Africans did the maximum year after year after year after year, right? And, the South African rand is now 25, and, they got out at 10 rand or 12 rand, whatever it was, so there's been a bit of a run on the currency, but, they've got their money out now. They don't have any sanctions either.
Wow, so they can invest freely into what they want. Interesting, yeah. Okay. Should we end it there?
I think that's a good good ending point, and thank you for having me. And if you need any further clarification, I'm very happy to pop back. Sure. I will see whether Bloomberg will locate the article, etc., that may be helpful, and or the interview, and any information that that may enhance the value of your podcast.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Nigel.
Thank you very much.